Professor Robertson van Trotta rightly mentioned that we are given too brief time to discuss two huge questions. I am just one representative of this privileged minority which will be speaking here under these conditions. So I will try to be brief, in spite of the fact that the topic which I was invited to address is really huge and would require a full course of lectures to be presented in full as it deserves. I will start from telling you that about 15 years ago, I was desperately struggling to find a name for our type of life to replace the term postmodernity or postmodernism. I wonder whether you still remember it, because our culture is mostly culture of forgetting, not of learning. But there was such a dominant notion. We are living in a postmodern time, and it was wanting on two accounts. The first account was that it suggested that we are already on the other side of modernity, which of course is not true. We are more modern than ever humanity was in human memory. When I was a student, and that was more than half a century ago, I was taught by very, very wise teachers I was lucky to have that modernity is the end point of history to which we will arrive eventually, providing we modernize ourselves. So there is a modernization period leading to the state of modernity when we will be living happily ever after, just treating ourselves to the fruits of the attainments of our forebears. It's not true. Now we know for sure that modernization is not a road leading to modernity. Modernization is the way of modernity being. Modernity means modernizing compulsively, obsessively, and addictively, never stopping to change things, to improve them, or ever believing that we are post something, that something needs to be left behind, and that new improvements should be introduced. When you stop modernizing, you stop being modern. In the same way as the wind stops being wind once it stops blowing, and river stops being river when it stops flowing. So we are actually condemned to spend our life changing things, creating interim periods, transitory settlements, and avoiding reaching the point of destination, of arrival, the point which Léon Baptiste Alberti, in times of Renaissance, would describe as the state of perfection. Perfection is the state, ladies and gentlemen, in which every further change could be only a change to the worse, and therefore it is undesirable and should be avoided by all cost. When I was looking desperately for replacement for the term of postmodernity, that was one of the reasons. The second reason was that postmodernity didn't tell us anything about what is the nature of the society in which we are in. It only told us what we are already not, what we stopped being. Falsely suggested that we stopped being modern. We haven't stopped being modern. We are not postmodern. We are in modern. But at the same time, it didn't suggest anything in particular to justify the wish to find a new term, the new name, the new distinction for the society we live in. And then I try to settle for the metaphor of liquidity as the positive, not negative, but positive description of the kind of the world in which we live at the moment. Why liquidity? Well, because liquid is notorious for not being able to keep its shape, unless it is forced artificially for a time being to be in a container, like now in this glass, for example. It will spill over, leak, seep. It will change all the time its shape. And that's exactly what our world around is like. It is liquid. We can't rely that when we go out for a trip and come back, the things will be as they were before. They will be certainly changed one way or the other. That's why I selected the metaphor of liquidity to describe the distinction, the distinctive feature of the society in which we live. But then the most haunting question for me was, what does it mean to be in the state of liquidity? Is it a temporary irritant? Is it a transitory period? Things are not yet finally settled, but they are going to settle. They are going to settle, they are going to acquire a new shape, new system. One system is finished, but here is the prediction of another system emerging. These are preliminary insights into the world to come. That was one possibility. The other possibility was simply that we are in a state of disorder, and here, from here, in this condition, everything can happen and nothing can be really done. Now, when I'm looking 15 years later on what I remember from debates and discussions and doubts, 15 years old, I come to a conclusion, and which I would like to suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen, that we live in a period of interregnum. Interregnum. Interregnum is a very old notion invented by Tito Livio, the author of Ab Urbe Condita, the first story of Rome, and his partly legendary story. There was the biography of Romulus, who was the first king of Rome. Romulus was king of Rome 36 years, and 36 years, mind you, ladies and gentlemen, that was the average length of life of average citizen of Rome, which means that when Romulus died, there were very few people in Rome who remembered times without Romulus. And there was a panic in Rome. There was a panic in Rome called interregnum. Why? Because the only source of authority, of binding laws, of binding rules, which was Romulus, disappeared, and there was nothing in sight to replace. It was clear that once authority disappeared, vanished, allegedly, according to the legend, Romulus didn't die, he went directly to heaven, so he just evaporated. Once that evaporated, there is no one to trust, no one to look for. It lasted until Romulus was replaced by Numa, the second king of Rome. In the 20th century already, the idea of interregnum was updated to the present condition, and I am following partly Antonio Gramsci, a reformulation of the meaning of interregnum, separating it from succession of kings or dynasties, and putting it in the contemporary context. And what he said was that interregnum is a state in which the old ways of doing things don't work any longer, but the new ways of doing things have not been invented yet. And we are precisely in condition of interregnum. We know that when we fall back on our memories, on our routines, on things which were tested before and seem to be working, we are expecting a defeat. We are taking enormous risks. We are just playing a hazardous game. We are, in a sense, groping in the dark. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm terribly sorry for following the habit of old people and reminiscing about my young years, but when I was young, the basic question about which we quarreled was the question, what is to be done? The only question. Once we have decided what is to be done, what is the image, the model of a good society which we ought to create, a system society, a self-equilibrating society, as the dominant sociologists of the time, Talcott Parsons, used to say. Once we have this model, there's no problem, no doubt, who will put it in place. Of course, the nation state. Of course, the state like Italy, Germany, France, Britain, they have all the means needed to put things in place. I suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen, that the main question today is not any longer what is to be done. I think that what is to be done is the easiest part of the problem. We can come together, debate, discuss, and come to some sort of agreement. The real question is, who is going to do it? Who is going to do it? Where is the agency powerful enough to put it in place? I'm terribly sorry for this allegory, so to speak, but remember about the hot days when leaders of the most powerful economies in the world, like Germany and France, Madame Merkel, Monsieur Sarkozy, came together on Friday to decide what to do to quiet down the rampant financial markets, to save euro, to save Spain, to save Italy, to save Greece, to save Ireland, to save Iceland. They made some decisions on Friday, and I suspect that they spent sleepless Saturday and Sunday waiting for Monday opening of stock exchanges to decide whether what they have done have made any sense or not. That is the problem which I unpack as divorce, for the time being separation, but leading towards divorce between power and politics. Power, the closest to my meaning of power is the German concept of Macht. And politics, again, the closest to my meaning is the German concept of Herrschaft. There's a divorce between the two. Macht does not mean necessarily Herrschaft. Macht, power, when you go to the bottom of the issue, means ability to have things done. I am powerful if I am able to have things done. Politics, Herrschaft, means ability to decide which things ought to be done. And there is a divorce between them today. Once upon a time, not so long ago, certainly in my life memory, they were married, they lived together in one household. The household was called Nation, statt, or nation state, and people believed, I remember, that the marriage between power and politics was made in heaven, and no human power can separate them any longer. Well, it did happen. It did happen. Power is beyond control of politics, to put it in a nutshell. Beyond control of politics. Political herrschaft areas are limited, are local, as they used to be before, while power, the ability to have things done, has moved beyond their reach, beyond their control. Beyond their control. And that is the source, that the kernel, the heart, the foundation of problems, of the collection of problems which we call globalization. Globalization of power, while politics did not follow suit. And we don't have an agency today able really to control the floating powers. Floating powers. The great Spanish sociologist Manuel Castells uses the concept of the space of flows and the space of places. We are divided, we are torn between these two spaces. They interact with each other, but we do not coordinate. Power resides in the space of flows. The politics, the herrschaft, the attempt to control things, to dominate them, attempt at herrschaft, are remaining as they were 100 years ago at the level of the nation state. And that is the, I suggest to you, the ultimate source of conditions in which we are, in the liquidity of our situation. There are simply two different kinds of forces, discoordinated, acting each on subject to their own rules and laws, but not in any way agreeing their moves. Well, I think the next speaker will be speaking about multiple modernities. Yes, there are many forms of modernity today, but there is something which unites them and which justifies speaking about them as modernities, all of them. What unites them is fragility, temporariness, vulnerability, and inclination to constant change. I suggested to you that because of this discoordination, separation, divorce between Macht and Herrschaft, between power and politics, what we have today is a situation in which the only permanence is change. Change is the only permanence. And the only certainty is uncertainty. We can be pretty certain that we will go on living under condition of uncertainty. Liquid modernity. Liquid modernity suggests that we are melting the solids. We are melting the solids. Nothing new about it. It is a permanent modern pastime, melting the solids. Already two hot-headed youngsters from Rhineland, one was called Karl Marx, the other was called Friedrich Engels, rejoiced in the ability of early 19th century capitalism to melt everything solid and to secularize, so to speak, profane everything which was sacred, because they believed that this melting is a temporary irritant. Once we melt the wrong kind of solids, we will build new kind of solids which are much more reliable, much more trustworthy, and much more hospitable to human condition. That was the idea which was common to the left and right. It was idea, as they say today, beyond left and right throughout 19th and 20th century. However different were the political ideologies, they all agreed on the point that we need a change in order to finish the change. we need to melt the existing solids in order to create a solid kind of solid, which we will actually enjoy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, flexibility is the slogan of the day. It replaced solidity as the ideal conditions of things and affairs to be pursued. If the solid modernity wish to fix and control the future, liquid modernity is after avoiding mortgaging the future, which means leaving all possible options open, not to fix anything forever. Everything should be made until further notice. It is the spirit of our times. It goes from the top of the political hierarchy down to the daily life of everyone among our youngsters who are using, for example, internet dating instead of the offline dating and flirting, precisely because it is so easy to connect and so easy to disconnect. It is so little obliging, so little fixing in dating, in internet dating by comparison with the real, very troublesome, very difficult art of love. So that is roughly the change which we are now in. We are fearing things fixed too firmly to permit their dismantling. Allegedly, American architects do not accept permission for construction of a building unless a permission to dismantle it after 20 years is attached, because they don't believe that whatever they build will be profitable and fit for utilizing 20 years from now. That is largely the perspective, the time perspective in which we think. I don't think that there are any people who are suggesting today to build a Gothic cathedral meant to last for millennia. We have shortened our vision. Our life is fragmentized, episodicized, cut into episodes. Each episode has beginning and the end, but the major care which we feel, which we apply, is how to prevent the episode from having lasting consequences which will constrain our freedom to improvise after a while, when conditions will change, as inevitably they will. I have been shown a yellow card. Whoever is a lover, fan of football knows what it means. Next will be the red, so I have to stop. Terribly sorry, but I mentioned already, I will just sum up. I mentioned already Torquat Parsons, who dreamed about self-equilibrating system and presented such a model. Self-equilibrating system is a system which successfully defends itself against every change. Every change is transformed into momentary disturbance and then removed. So the system returns to its state as it was before. The great, our contemporary sociologist, Richard Sennett, notes completely different condition, where he says that perfectly viable companies, organizations, firms are now gutted, not for any purpose, simply to prove their ongoing viability. You need to show that you are able to destroy yourself on a momentary notice in order to prove that you are still viable, that you can still persist, and you are worthy of trust. If you remember another German, Edward Bernstein, one of the leaders of the German social democracy at the beginning of 20th century, he was once condemned and kicked out from social democratic movement because he said that movement is all and goal is nothing. But that has become the principle of our life today. What we are doing, we are reacting to crisis, we are making improvised decisions just to, close the gaps and wipe out the blots and stop the momentary difficulties, but without any idea to which it will actually lead. And the last remark, Max Weber, one of the greatest sociologists in human memory, defined modernity as instrumental rationalism. Instrumental rationalism, that means here is a given objective, given goal, given end. And rationality consists in selecting the most efficient, the most effective means to implement this given end. I would suggest to you, with all honor given to Max Weber, but still I would suggest to you that there's a time to change his indictment and to say that our type of modernity, all modernities, independent of their variety, of their distinctive feature, is a rationality of possibilism. We are not starting from the destiny. We are not starting from the goals. We are not starting from the vision of the destination, of the finishing line. We are starting from the amount of means at our disposal. What we have, what resources, what means of action we have, and what can be done with them. And we are improvising the answers. We are selecting one thing or another, like in interregnum. I can do that, so I will do that. That looks very attractive at the moment. When you have 6 billion people doing just that, and according to the UN statistics, more than 200 independent, sovereign nation-state doing just that, then you see that the result will be only uncertainty. Uncertainty is a combination of three things. One thing is ignorance, inability to say what's going to happen. The other, impotence. Impotence means even if I knew what's going to happen, I am not able to do anything to stop it or to change it. And when you have ignorance and impotence together, the result is the feeling of self-demeaning humiliation. I am simply inadequate to the task. Well, we are inadequate to the task which is created, which is posited in front of us by society, which we have created while being created by it. Thank you.